Hello everyone and welcome to this another episode of 3D prototyping in Unity. My name is Kasanas. In the last episode we finished off our zombie. We've got ourselves a working enemy and that's great. Today we're going to move on to a special effect. Actually, we're going to move on to a fairly large special effect. It might take an episode or two to actually finish it off. We're going to look at creating an explosion. Alright, let's get started. Okay guys, so as I mentioned, we are going to be making an explosion in this episode. It's going to be a ground-based explosion, meaning that you've thrown a grenade or you've shot a gas canister or something, and there's an explosion that occurs on the ground. I've already created a material using one of several Unity assets that are available, these smoke assets, smoke textures, and I've included them in the package so you guys can pick one of them. Depending on which smoke you pick, you're going to get a very different result because we are using an alpha blended pre-multiply shader. And so depending on which of these smokes you pick, you're going to get a different result in your actual explosion, the look of your explosion. And there's no right one or wrong one. You got to pick what you like. Okay, so I started off with smoke 3. I'm going to be using the fire material we had for our fireball and this thing that I've labeled fiery explosion. All right. So to start off with, I'm going to simply say create, and I'm going to create myself a particle system, and let's rename this right away to explosion. All right, and it's going to take a little while for this to actually look like an explosion. Let's go right away. Well, let's move this to 0 and 0 and 0, and let's just move it over a bit so we can see it. Let's take a look. First things first, let's open this up, and first things first, let's immediately change our actual default material to our fiery explosion. Alright, so that's the one I'm using, and obviously that doesn't look like an explosion. It doesn't look like anything really. We're going to make a couple of very quick changes here, and it's going to take a few minutes for this to actually start to look like an actual explosion. I'm going to change the duration to 1.5, so it's going to have a much shorter duration, and I'm going to match that to the actual lifetime, which is going to be 1.5 as well. Now that's going to give us enough time. Basically what we want this explosion to do is to explode outwards at a high rate and then dissipate. All right, that's what we want to happen. So first thing we're going to do, now let's make a couple of fast changes here. I'm going to change the start speed. I'm going to give it a pretty big random between two constants. I'm going to make it go between 20 and 200. And you guys are saying, whoa, what's happening now? And I know this is going to take a few minutes to actually be looking like an explosion here. And I know these numbers because I've already made this once. The start size, I'm going to change those values to a random between two constants and between 6 and 7. So we're getting a relatively same size on our explosion. We're not going to do any kind of start rotation or anything like that. We are going to change the maximum number of particles that are coming out. Actually, the first thing I'm going to change is from a cone to a hemisphere. And that's going to give us an explosion that kind of goes out in all directions in 3D from the ground up. So the ground is absorbing some of the explosive force and the rest of it's going upwards. All right? We'll change that right away. And the radius will stay exactly as it is for now. We can make some adjustments to it later on. But the emission itself, right now we've got a maximum of 1,000 particles with only 10 coming out at any given time. What I want to do instead is make a larger number of particles come out very, very quickly. So I'm going to change this to a max of particles of 100 on the screen at a time, and I'm going to change the rate to 1,000. So we're getting this kind of burst, boom, boom, each time where this burst occurs. All right? And that's already better off because we got this explosion effect that's happening here. Everything's kind of bursting away. Now, obviously, we still don't have ourselves an explosion here. What I want to do is I want to change how the actual velocity over its lifetime is actually operating. So I'm going to go down to limit velocity over lifetime. And as soon as I hit it, you're going to see right there that we've got this change, this effect. All right. I'm going to go in here and I'm going to change this to a curve. So instead of using a constant, I'm going to have a curve. And basically what I want to happen is I want to change my speed to match my above, so 20. And basically what I want to happen here is I want these things to explode out and then slow down as they kind of dissipate in the wind, all right, or the air around it. So I'm gonna change it to an effect like this, all right, to a curve like that. So right now you see how they're moving out and then they're slowing down, but I want to actually explode out much quicker. So I'm gonna come over here and I'm gonna add a key. I'm going to drag this guy down here, and I just kind of chose a random spot here, and I'm going to move it up like this. So now we've got this kind of growing effect where this thing kind of grows, and it kind of stops as it goes. And we still don't even have close to anything that looks like an explosion. We have it operating like an explosion, but it obviously doesn't look that way. And a lot of what's going to help this thing look like an explosion is the actual color over lifetime. So let's take a look at this here. Now the first thing I want to happen is I want the smoke to fade out. All right, so I'm going to turn my alpha at the end all the way down. So I kind of got this fading effect where it gets bigger and then fades out instead of just disappearing. I want the core of my explosion to be this kind of orangish yellow, and I'm just going to pick a random color in here for now. Let's try that. Random color for now, and that's going to be an orange burst, and then it's going to fade off. And I want it to fade off to a black color. So I'm going to change this right away to a very, very dark gray. And I'm going to drag this all the way down like this. All right, now you can see what I'm getting here is this kind of burst of orange that turns into the darkness afterwards. And I'm going to add one more. I'm going to add one more key in here, somewhere right around here. And I'm going to make this, let's make this a little darker. This is just maintaining the darkness for a little bit longer. I'm going to make this a little bit darker, actually. Let's move it down like that. And I'll go through and adjust these later on. So now what I'm getting, you can see what I'm getting now, is this kind of like burst of orange followed by a kind of dissipating dark smoke-like pattern. So far, so good. I'm going to change right now as well the size over lifetime. I kind of want these things to explode out bigger, meaning they're going to start off small and explode out and then kind of shrink a little tiny bit. So once again, I'm going to go in here, I'm going to add a curve, which I've already got, great. And I'm going to start off with my size a little bit smaller, actually. I'm going to drag this to somewhere around there. All right, and that's just a guess. That's just a wild guess. And I'm going to drag this so it doesn't quite hit 1. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to add a key. I'm just right-clicking to add that key. I'm going to drag this up. So I've got this quickly growing, let me flatten that out, flat. I've got this quickly growing smoke pattern happening now. You can see how it starts off small, it gets bigger, and then dissipates. And that's starting to look a little bit more like an explosion, but still not exactly what I want it to look like. Not exactly what I want it to look like. The last thing I'm going to add here is a little bit of rotation over lifetime. So we get a little bit of roiling going on within that. I had a nice circular pattern in my actual texture. So let's go in here and add rotation over lifetime. And I'm going to add a constant between two constants. And let's go between -45 and 45. All right. And that's going to give us a nice kind of roiling effect. So that looks pretty good. All right. But that's still not our explosion. That's still not our explosion. I kind of want to add a fiery core now. So let me just stop this. I'm going to click off of it for a second. I'm going to turn off looping actually right away because I don't want it to loop. Ultimately, it's not going to loop, right? Ultimately, we're going to have this thing set up so that it only plays once and stops. So I'll turn off looping right now. If I want to see it, I hit stop and then I hit simulate and it's going to show it to me. I'm going to add right away create a brand new particle system, and let's just zero this out again. 0, 0. Let's just set it back to this. Boom, reset. Where was this one at? This one was at, well, you know what I'm going to do? I'm actually going to put this particle system underneath the one above it. So I'm going to put it inside the explosion. Let me just zero that out. 0, great. And I'm going to change this right now to, let's call this fiery core. This is going to be the initial explosion that occurs, kind of like that bright orange flash. We've got a bright orange flash going on here, but I want to kind of have it look like there's some debris coming out immediately, kind of like fire. Once again, I'm going to go down right away, and I'm going to change this into a hemisphere. And we're going to increase the size of this hemisphere to, let's say, a radius of, let's say, 3. So it's a little bit larger than our initial one. Is this a sphere? Why does it look like that? Oh, I've got it curved the wrong way. Cool. Let's make this -90. Nope, 0, 0. So it's pointing upwards as well. There we go. All right, so that's how we want it to look. And basically, this is going to have a lot of similar things associated with it. So right away, let's go in and change. Let's go in and change right away from our render, our default, to our fire. We're going to use the fire for this one. All right, just like that. And what I want to do is I'm going to change the duration of this. Right now, again, it's looping. I don't like that, but we'll leave it like that for a minute. Let's just change the duration so it's 0.5. It's going to be this very, very fast burst, and the lifetime is going to match at 0.5. So it's going to be this very, very fast burst effect, and you can vary up one of those if you want to. Once again, we're going to have a very fast speed, so let's make it 200. It's going to be a very, very fast speed, and we're going to have a fairly large start size of, let's say, 10. And if that's too big, we'll take a look at it later. So right now, you can't really see anything. We can't see anything going on now. We're going to change a number of different things. We're going to go down here again, and we're going to change our particles so they're not acting in the same way. I'm going to have 10 coming out at any given time, so not very many at all. And I'm going to make, shut this, a maximum of 100. All right? So once again, we're getting this boom, boom, this kind of burst effect that's occurring, and these things are flying off into space. Right away, we're going to go down, and we are going to change our limit velocity over lifetime. So we're kind of getting this explosion occurring like this. And you know what? If you want to leave it like that, you can. That'll work just fine. If you want to go in and add a similar curve to what we had before, that's also fine as well. If you do, if you actually do, then it's going to be very similar to what we had. All right, just add in the same curve. I'm not going to bother right now. I'll just leave it like this and see how that turns out. I want to change something else as well. I do want to change obviously the color over lifetime, because right now we've kind of got this nice dirty effect going on here, but they're just blinking on and off. So let's go in and change our color over lifetime. And let's change it so we've got a 0 alpha at the end, and that's going to give us a nice fade, okay? And we can see that kind of exploding, bursting like that, and I like that. After that, let's change our size over lifetime. We want this thing to kind of burst in, so size over lifetime. We want it to kind of burst in, and then we want it to taper off very quickly. So I'm going to add a curve like this. So we've kind of got this bursting effect going on, and you know you can. It's going to look really good when we tie it all together. So let's stop this for now. Let's actually turn off our looping, because ultimately it's not going to loop. Let's go to our explosion, stop it, and simulate. Boom. And we've kind of got that fiery effect going on now. There's a fiery effect, a burst effect of flame, and followed by a nice puff of smoke. All right, so that's starting to look better already. That's starting to look more like an explosion already. All right, I like how that's looking. The last thing I'm going to add, well, not the last thing. One of the last things I'm going to add is going to be the ability to have debris come flying out of this explosion when it actually occurs. And once again, I'm going to create a brand new particle system, and we'll just simply call this particle system. Scroll to the top here. Let's call this thing here debris. Debris. All right, and once again, let's go right away and change our shape to a hemisphere, and we're going to make this hemisphere slightly larger than the other ones. Let's make it, let's say, well, that's far too big. Let's make it 3.5. All right, and I'm going to drag debris, and I'm going to drop it inside of fiery explosion, and I'm going to make sure that it is zeroed out. So 0 and 0 and 0. All right, and that should be fine. And what I want to happen this time here, right now everything's emitting. We've always been emitting from the actual object itself. I want to emit from the shell. So it's only going to be coming off of the shell rather than from the center of this object. And what I want to do, I'm going to go through and make a number of changes, obviously, like we did before. I'm going to set it to a duration of 1, so it's going to be a 1 second duration, and we're going to give it a lifetime of 1.5, similar length to the other stuff we've got. I'm going to change my speed. I'm going to give it a random between two constants, between, let's say, 10 and 20 for now. And basically what I want is for this to be looking like a... things have been shot out of this explosion. Some debris and stuff has been shot out of this explosion. I'm going to make them a little bit smaller to start off with. I'm going to make it a, let's say 0.25, and let's make them 2, random between constants, and 0.75. So we're getting different size debris. You can vary those numbers as much as you like. And we're going to start our rotation off. As between minus 180 and 180. So we're getting a random direction for our actual objects. And we're going to add a gravity multiplier. So I'm going to add a gravity multiplier of 0.5. And basically what I want is I want this thing here, like I said, to explode out and then to be affected by gravity. So it's going to kind of fall down as this thing is moving away. We're going to set up our emission rate right now. We want to set up so there's only a handful of particles, but they're coming out relatively quickly. So I'm gonna set it up for 10 with a rate of 20. Okay. Now there's a couple of things. We already changed our thing to hemisphere and already emitted from the actual shell. But I want to go in and I'm going to change. Obviously, I'm going to limit my velocity. Oops, no, sorry. Limit my velocity over lifetime again. And I'm not going to limit it exactly the same way. What I am going to do is I'm going to change this thing here. I'm going to change it to a curve. I'm going to set it up so this is 100. So we're kind of getting this bursting effect that it's occurring again. And the curve itself, I'm going to have it drop off only slightly. So I'll set it up like this for now. I'm going to drag this way up. All right, like that. I'm going to kind of move that down. So we're really, you know what, I'll flatten this out. That's fine. So we're kind of getting this, you know what, I kind of want it to fall. All right, I'll have to do it like that. All right, so we're kind of getting this, where it's a slow down by gravity or whatever, or by gravity and by, you know, wind resistance or whatever, slowing this entire thing down. Once again as well, I want to change my color over lifetime. And I really like to always put in this change in alpha. I don't like things just to disappear, so let's turn our alpha way down. All right, so that's going to make them kind of fade out over time, which is great. And again, I'm going to want to change my size over lifetime. So let's turn on my size over lifetime and open that up. And I'm going to use a curve again, and I'm going to have this thing drop off. Again, it's not going to be a whole lot. Let's do what we did before. Let's just drag this down. Let's make it about half the size. So basically what's happening is this, you know, the fire or whatever is burning out over time. Now, once again, I kind of want to have a color over lifetime. And the particles I'm going to use, I'm going to use, once again, let's go down to my, I know I'm skipping around here a bit. Let's go to my renderer, and I'm going to change my default particles to the fiery particles. Whoops. To my fire particles. All right, so I've kind of got this like flame burst that's flying off. And yeah, that's going to be fine. And I'm going to use, instead of using just a billboard effect, I'm going to use a stretch billboard to kind of give me like, it's going to be stretched out to kind of give it like a tail. And you can see already that it looks like there's a tail kind of coming off of behind it. And that's going to allow, like, you know, fiery particles are kind of shooting off, if you will. Okay, so let's go in and change our color now. Our color over lifetime. And I've already changed the alpha. What I want to change as well is I want to kind of give it a nice bright orangish color, just like we did with the other one. Let's make it a nice bright orange. So we kind of got this orange tinge to the entire thing. And I also want to kind of have it fall off to black relatively quickly. So I'm going to add this in here, and I'm going to change this to a very dark color. So we kind of got this dark tail that's kind of at the end of its life. It's kind of fading off to darkness. All right, and I don't really need this one. I could have just, boop, I could have left it like that. So that's going to give me a nice fade off from this darkness into nothingness. Okay, and that's kind of what I wanted for the explosions themselves. Let's give it a little bit of rotation over lifetime. So maybe the debris is spinning or whatever as it's kind of flying. Let's add that in there, random between two constants. Let's make it negative 45 and 45. So that's going to give it kind of a spinning effect. And all of these things are extremely subtle. To be honest, they're extremely subtle, and they're going to be somewhat difficult to see until it's all together, and it's going to look really good. Okay, so right now we got this debris flying off, and it's not exactly what I want. What I want to happen is I want to have a, first of all, I don't want to loop. Let's turn off our loop once again. Okay, what I want to happen is I want to have this, let me just play it once so you guys can see it. Stop and simulate. Boom, and then we got some flying stuff coming out. All right, so what I basically want to happen is I want to have a trail of smoke that's behind the debris. So now we're going to add a new particle system, kind of a smoke-like particle system that's going to be trailing behind. So let's just create a brand new particle system. Boom. And let's zero this out. 0 and 0 and 0, and I'm going to zero this out as well. All right, and this time we are going to set up our shape as a sphere. All right, we're going to have this thing kind of going in all directions. But we're going to limit the actual radius of the sphere to 0.01. So it's going to be coming from a very particular pinpoint. All right, and let's go through and make our couple of changes. First of all, I'm going to grab this particle system, I'm going to drag it, and I'm going to drop it on debris. And let's zero it out again. Zero it out to make sure we've got it in the right spot, and zero this out to make sure it's in the right spot. All right, and we'll leave it looping for the time being, but obviously it's going to change and not be looping later on. Let's start our start lifetime to a random between two constants. And we're going to make it a relatively short lifespan. It's smoke that's being dragged along behind and it's dissipating fairly quickly. So 0.5 and let's say a maximum lifetime of 2. And we're going to start our start size. The start size is going to be, again, random between two constants. And it's going to be a relatively small particle. So 0.5 to, let's say, 1. Okay, and our start speed right now is currently set to 5. We're going to set it to be 0. So everything is occurring in 1 point. And the plan, well, I'll go over the plan in a second. Let's change the name right away to debris trail. All right, so we're gonna set up so the particles are coming out relatively quickly. Our emission is going to be maximum particles of 100, and we'll have an emission rate of 100. So they're coming out kind of in a burst. That is actually a burst. But they're coming out over and over and over again. All right, and I'm going to change the color. Once again, I'm going to kind of get it the same color shape, color over lifetime that we've been using up until now. I kind of want this to look like a particle that's on fire. Let me double click this. A particle that's on fire. So I'm going to change this to a relatively bright orange or white. You guys can decide what it's going to be. And what I want to do is I'm going to take this one. I'm going to make it black. Bam. And I'm going to have it trailing behind very, very quickly. So it's only going to be light for a couple of seconds, kind of like this burning debris, and it's going to leave behind a trail. And then once again, I'm going to fade out my alpha so that it fades over time, just like that. The size of it as well is going to change, my size over lifetime. And the size over lifetime is going to be, it's going to drop off. And it's going to drop off, let's have it in a pattern like this. It's going to drop off to 0. So this is what I want is this is going to be being dragged behind my other debris system. It's going to be being dragged behind. And as it's being dragged, it's going to leave this tail behind, and I want the tail to start off with a nice smoky tail, and then to fade off to nothingness, and I want it to kind of get smaller as it goes. Now, that's going to give it kind of like an arrow effect, and ultimately I might want to change this to the opposite effect. We'll see. I'll try both of them and see which one I like better. Okay, and yeah, I think that is going to be pretty good. Let's give it a little bit of rotation over lifetime once again, just so we've kind of got this swirling effect. Let's just leave it at 45. It doesn't really matter. Now, what I want to do is I'm going back to debris here. Oh, let's turn this off looping, obviously. Let's have it loop. Bam. Now, I'm going to go back to debris. And right now, this debris trail is just sitting in the middle of our effect right here. That's all it's doing is sitting there right now. What I want to do is I'm going back to debris itself, and I'm going to scroll up, till I find subemitters. And I'm going to turn it on. And subemitters allows us to create particles at some given time. Okay, and I'm going to create my debris trail upon the birth of another particle. So whenever a particle is created in my debris, it's going to drag this debris tail along behind it. All right, so if I hit, make sure my debris, if I hit stop and simulate now, you can kind of see that fiery blackness. Now that's pretty heavy. That's a little heavier than I actually like as far as the color is concerned. So I'm going to change the actual debris tail from that dark black like that to maybe a grayish, kind of like that. Let's see how that looks. Let's see if that looks better. Debris, stop and simulate, boom. So that looks a little bit better. It might even be a little bit large as far as the debris is concerned. We can go down and we can change the size of it a little bit here. I've got a size between 0 and 0.75. Let's make it between, let's make it 0.5, and it shouldn't be 0. It should be like 0.1. All right, and let's see how that looks. Stop and simulate. All right. So we can kind of see that the debris trail. It's dragging along. It's dragging along the actual the white thing. And you know what? I think I forgot to change my debris trail. I'm pretty sure I'm using the default particle still, aren't I? I am. We don't want to use default particles. I think you very rarely want to use default particles. Let's change it so it looks like our fiery explosion particles. And let's change it so that, let's try out the stretch billboard once again. Stop and simulate. Boom. All right, now that's kind of, we're a little bit light now, so I probably want to adjust the colors once again, because now I'm not getting any kind of debris trail at all. So let's go back up here and change this from gray to a black. And I think that should be better. Let's actually change our alpha slightly over time as well. Let's make it stay around a little longer. All right, and let's try that. Stop and simulate. All right, that doesn't look so bad. I don't mind that at all. I kind of like the way that the explosion's occurring, and I like the fact that I'm getting these different particles that come exploding out. Now, I think, guys, I might call that the episode, simply because it's running very long. I think I'm well over 20 minutes right now, and what I want to do is in the next episode we'll actually take a look at creating the rest of the explosion. So what I want to happen in the next episode is we'll write a script that's going to allow anyone who's standing within a specific area close to the actual explosion to be affected by the explosion as well. All right, so they'll take damage or something like that. Let's put this on billboard. See how that looks. Boom. That's too dark now. So there's a gentle balance there, guys. There's definitely a gentle balance. Let's turn this back to kind of light gray. Sorry, I got sidetracked. It's way too big. Anyway, I'll play with those numbers, guys, and I want you to play with your numbers as well, okay? Really and truly, this is going to be something that you're gonna. Oh, that's why it's way too big. Oh, that's fine. Let's change our actual debris. This is going to have to be something that you guys are going to kind of play with and see what you like and how you like it to look. It's going to take a lot of manipulation and playing around. That is way too big. It's bugging me. But anyway, I'll go back and I'll correct this a little bit later. I'll go in and make all my adjustments, and I'll show you what they are next episode. So next episode, guys, we're going to go in and we're going to make this thing into we're going to add some sound to it, we're going to add some light to it, and we're going to actually add an effect that's going to be able to damage or hurt something else. All right, guys? I hope you enjoyed that episode. This was simply the particle systems that are involved in actually creating the explosion, not the full explosion, guys. We'll get to that next week. Hope you enjoyed it. If you did, let me know with a thumbs up. If not, a thumbs down is perfectly fine. Let me know what you didn't like, and I'll try and make corrections to it as I move forward. Okay? Thumbs up, thumbs down, comments down below, and if you haven't done so, please take a few seconds to subscribe. Have yourselves a wonderful day, everyone.